We're moving on now to our next session, and we have a fascinating panel discussion looking at the future. It's all about what's happening tomorrow in the next generation, a message from the next generation of the critical role of youth in doing things differently. Wow, we have a lot to learn, don't we? Please welcome on stage to lead this session, Dirkx, the CEO and co-founder of Beenova AI.
Thank you very much, Babita. Thank you. All right, we've got some very special guests today, and yes, I mean you, but I also mean the robots that are joining us on stage today. So, Selin, you have brought 2 robots from Istanbul. These are our special guests. They did not require a COVID test, so we're all good. And we're very excited about taking you through a session today on the voices of the youth, and thrilled to have you with us. Wonderful. So, Selin, have a seat. We also have our virtual guests joining from a variety of different cities today. And it is such a pleasure to speak with all of you and to see you dialing in. Thank you very much. So I'm going to start with doing a few introductions, and then we'll get right into a discussion. Ratneshwaran is a teenager who is passionate about technology and has been coding and working on programming languages since he was 8. He focuses on computer engineering and building technology-oriented solutions. He's also the founder of Amelia, an artificial intelligence company that focuses on health. Ratneshwaran, do you want to just give a quick wave? Very good. Yes, excellent. Well, there we are. We are very happy to have you with us today. Very nice. Wonderful. So, Selin, you're joining me on stage today. Selin is 15 years old, a 10th grade student who lives in Istanbul. And Selin has been building robots for the last few years, including the ones that you see on stage with us today, which we will invite her to share more about. And Selin, you've done some incredible work. I can't wait to hear what inspired you to build your robots and what inspired you to start the journey. So you can share that with us today as well.
I can't believe to talk about it. Can't wait to talk about it.
Lovely, wonderful. Great, so then I'm going to introduce our next 2 guests as well. Just give a quick wave when I mention you. Kautilya, it's so nice to see you again. You're joining us from Northampton, UK. Kautilya is 7 years old and started coding when he was 6 and actually holds the World Guinness record on being one of the youngest coders. So that's pretty awesome. He's had a very interesting way of making COVID work for him by taking the opportunity of the lockdown to teach himself more coding skills. And he's recognized as a top talent in AI and machine learning. So it's lovely to have you with us today as well. Okezue Bell is a 15-year-old innovator who has been researching and working with AI and machine learning, neuroscience at great names like Microsoft and Harvard Mass General. He also works at Perfect Day alongside Leonardo DiCaprio and has worked with Hanson Robotics. So, Okezue, wonderful to see you, wonderful to have you with us today. Yeah, excellent big smile. All right. Well, now that we've had the introductions of these wonderful superstars, I'm going to start with you, Selin.
All right.
And I just want to make sure that you can see well into the audience and that the audience can see you over your wonderful robots. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your 2 guests and what inspired you to build them?
So this is BB for All, a school-age robot for students, teachers, and staff at school. And its main aim is to prevent bullying. And this is IC4U, a robot guide dog for blind people. And I build robots for people who have disabilities and for children in need. And I love to build them because I think that AI could be used to have a better future and for making people's lives easier and making them have more enjoyable lives. And I use AI to add autonomous and sensor skills to my robots. And IC4U and BB for All are going to be at the entrance. So if you want to come and say hello, you can find them at the entrance.
Well, Celine's jumping a little bit to the end there and explaining to us that her robots will be available for you to get to know better at the entrance after our session. But before we move on to that, Celine, tell me a little bit about what's inspired you to build IC4U.
My dad had a dog, and he was there since I was born. He was like a brother to me, and I was really sad when I lost him when I was 8 years old, and I wanted to revive him. So I thought that if I built a robot for him, I could revive him again. So that's why I decided to build robots. And I also saw a blind person one day in the streets, and with a guide dog, and I thought that if they lose their dogs, they would lose their best friend and their eyes again. So that's why I want to build IC4U.
That's beautiful, Celine.
Thank you.
So I think any dog lovers in the audience will agree with us today that that's really, really special that you did that. Thanks for sharing, and we'll talk more about it. Okezue, lovely to see you today. You have worked with some you've worked with some very big names, but we want to learn a little bit more about you, Okezue. What inspired you, and what really kicked off your journey to get involved with technology?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think the biggest thing was just seeing so many different problems around the world that I hadn't previously been exposed to. Like, for example, agriculture accounts for about 25% of all greenhouse gases. So it's a fourth of the problem that's heavily unaddressed. And for me, I realized that there are so many companies out there working on these slightly more, I'd say, esoteric problems that aren't as well known. And just being somebody who's interested in researching and going down Google internet searches and rabbit holes, I kind of ended up just cold emailing a bunch of different people passionate about this problem, passionate to kind of enter the industry with my skills and my understanding, bringing both my technical skills, so like coding, research, and then also my understanding, my unique perspective as a young person. You know, as young people, we didn't necessarily create the climate crisis, but we're going to be facing the worst of its effects over time. So we kind of have this moral high ground and ultimately this responsibility to play a role in developing the solutions of the future. And I just really wanted to be a part of that. And that's kind of how I ended up at Perfect Day. And then I started looking into other problems like the disability crisis. So I'm now building a prosthetic, which is kind of the work I was doing with Hanson Robotics. But overall, it was just like really getting exposure to the world and understanding how many different problems are out there and how many technologies we have at our disposal today to solve them.
That you're taking a lot of responsibility to actually solve some of the major crises that you feel your generation has ahead of them. Wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
No, go ahead, please, go ahead.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was just going to agree with kind of what you're saying. You know, I think one of the biggest things that we should all have is this sort of social responsibility with respect to science. So understanding that, yeah, there is a gee whiz appeal of being able to build these devices and have access to APIs and different code bases that allow us to interface with some of the latest technologies. But ultimately, we also have to understand our role in building these important solutions because these problems affect all of us no matter where we are or who we are.
Wonderful. Okay, and we'll swing back to that as well, because I'd love to learn more about a particular case that you're really passionate about that you can share with the audience. So just start thinking about that if you don't mind. Okay, Kautilya, something I love about your story is how much you've already achieved, and I think you're only 8 years old. So we can all be very impressed by what you have already achieved. Do you want to share with us a little bit about what you enjoy most about working with artificial intelligence and machine learning? I'm afraid we can.
What I enjoy most about artificial intelligence and machine learning is maybe that you can make anything, almost anything using it. I mean, that might be coding. So, okay, yeah, you can make almost anything using it, basically. That might be.
Well, you do know that you have a very special skill set, so we are very happy that you are going to share that with us a little bit more today. I just want to hear one thing from you, Kautilya. When you were on lockdown for months, what was your favorite thing that you achieved in your journey becoming better at AI and machine learning?
I think it might be, I don't really know.
No problem. We can come back to that later. So just so you know, I might swing back later to ask you a question about what the favorite thing was that you learned during the lockdown. But don't worry if you can't think of an answer. We'll figure it out together. All right, excellent. Ratneshwaran, you have done some incredible things, and we didn't even get a chance to talk about your not-for-profit yet, 40 seconds. So maybe we can kick it off with that. Tell us a little bit about your not-for-profit organization, 40 seconds.
Okay, thank you so much for having me today. Okay, so 40 Seconds is a youth platform. So we are a United Nations partnered nonprofit organization based out in India. So we essentially work in 19 countries and bring together youth and teenagers from all around these countries to work collaboratively in solving global issues in different ways, such as in advocacy or creating projects or using technology as well. So essentially, it's just teenagers coming together, brainstorming ideas, and maybe sending it to the United Nations or creating our own projects, or writing reports, and so on. That's essentially 40 seconds. We just believe that youth voices need to be heard, and we want to be the representative of all the youth over the world.
Okay, very good. And you also have a healthcare startup. Your primary focus is healthcare, but I understand that there are other areas you touch as well. So what exactly do you seek to solve in the healthcare industry?
Well, when it comes to healthcare, my company and I usually focus on mental health disorders. So we aim to diagnose. We are more of a diagnostic AI kind of platform, where we try to aid healthcare professionals in diagnosing diseases. So we do this by analyzing data and trying to diagnose the symptoms of any mental health disorder like schizophrenia, Alzheimer's at a very early stage. So this basically, helps us, increase the lifespan of the people and also reduce the cost of healthcare in many countries. So an example of this might be where for example, a day where your hand like shivers, or you might think the hand shivers because of drinking too much coffee, although it might be because of schizophrenia or any mental health disorder, or Parkinson's or something like that. So basically, what the AI does is tries to analyze the patterns and figure out whether you have any in mental health disorder at a very early stage. So that's essentially what we focus on at Amelia.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I think towards the end of the conversation, I'll be very interested in learning a little bit more about what inspired you to achieve this. So thank you for sharing. Speaking of inspiration, I really hope you are inspired by the wonderful panelists we have today. But Selin, I'm going to swing it over to you again. Tell us a little bit about, I can't imagine it's easy, what you've done. So I have two questions. First, can you tell us a little bit about practically how you started building these robots?
Like I said earlier, when I lost my dog, I wanted to revive him, so I had a math project at the same time, so I had to interview about math, and I had to interview my dad's friend about mechanics, so he actually told me about coding, and when I was 8, I started to take coding courses, but I actually didn't want to go because it was all boys. And fortunately, I had a lot of people who supported me. And my mom also told me that interests are gender-free and that I shouldn't give up and do what I want to do. So I did end up going to the courses. And when I was little, there wasn't that much resource to go to use for coding. So, but as I grew up, there are more resources I could use. So, like, I attend summer camps. I attended a really cool summer camp, Stanford's AI for All summer camp this year. And I learned a lot. And I think that young people, especially girls, should be encouraged in using technology and AI for good.
Okay, wonderful. So you saw a problem, you realized you wanted to solve it, and at the same time, you were taking math class at school, but you wanted to learn more about mechanics, and then you applied your real skills that you were learning to solve a problem. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And you mentioned a little bit about the challenges that you overcame. One of them you shared with us was that coding, there were mainly boys in the class. You still went, being inspired by what your mom said. Wonderful, that's excellent. Good for you. And look at now you're joining us with this incredible creation, so that's amazing.
Thank you.
All right, Okezue, I just want to swing back to what I'd said earlier. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what inspired you? Of course, your journey hasn't been easy. You've probably had to overcome a few challenges like everybody else. So what inspires you to keep going?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that inspires me to keep going is seeing the impacts and the possibilities that I have and really proving people wrong. I think one of the biggest things is that in our classical conception of people in deep technology or in the workspace is that it's typically older individuals. Like it was said previously, a lot of them are males. And in some of the spaces, they're dominated by a relatively homogenous demographic. So me being a male person of color and also a 15-year-old working in something like artificial intelligence or, building a prosthetic, I think is pretty unconventional for our time. And I think we're seeing more and more people do that, which also inspires me as well. I think seeing more people be invested in these problems and really want to develop the solutions of the future makes me want to keep going and makes me interested in developing these technologies and also the impacts and the possibility that it could have. Talking to different amputees about the prosthetic, about how it can help their lives, or discussing with Nigerians about how developing more equitable AI-driven diagnostics will help them diagnose some of their worst diseases like pneumonia and influenza at a better and more sophisticated manner. So I think for me, it's just like the community aspect of technology from both the impact and a personal perspective.
Wonderful. And what are some of the technical challenges? Let's just talk purely technical that you're proud to have solved so far.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones was at Microsoft. I was doing the equitable diagnostics piece, as I mentioned previously, and we were having this super weird issue with pre-processing like 15,000 photos and then segmenting those images. And then I figured out a data-driven method to kind of overcome some of the errors that we were having, like we were having some bounds issues. For all of you programmers out there, you can imagine how annoying it is for waiting like 11 hours for code to run, and then you wake up and the next day and it says that there was like a broken pipe error, there's some sort of error when you were running the code. So ultimately figuring that out has been like so vindicating, and I think it's always the best feeling in the world when your code functions properly, it compiles and runs and executes properly. One time I was doing an image segmentation project for my prosthetic, and some of the dimensions of the image like shifted over a couple of pixels. So I developed a corrective algorithm that allowed me to balance and account for any margin of error or just anything of that nature, honestly. I have a lot of different errors and issues technically that I encounter all the time. So kind of solving them and breaking those technicalities is super fun.
Solve those challenges. Congratulations, that's great. Kautilya, I want to learn more about what you felt were your biggest lessons during the lockdown. What were you able to teach yourself, and why is it important that kids learn how to code?
I think it's important for kids to learn how to code because um because code because not only coding is fun, it's also so AI is coding is AI is spreading everywhere, so that's one reason why kids should learn it. So so another reason is that they should start early because kids learn faster than adults. So that's another reason why they should start early. So I mean that is a reason how that anyway. So yeah.
That's a very good reason, especially your second one. Can you tell me something that you would want adults to know about AI and machine learning?
Uh, um, maybe uh, maybe
Maybe you can tell us? We'll come back to that. You can tell us later something that you want all these adults that are really enjoying this session. I can see their faces, they are. You can tell them something that you want them to know about AI and machine learning. All right, we'll move over to Ratneshwaran. When it comes to creating change in an industry like healthcare, right, which spans the entire world with many different challenges, what do you believe is the best way to make a difference that is truly substantial?
Okay, thank you. So when it comes to change that is substantial, I think you got to start locally. So, I mean, what I have done is I have like partnered with a few research institutes in my local area first. So I believe you got to start locally and you got to go outward. So so yeah, essentially, like it need not just be related to healthcare or related to AI. It can be of any issue or any global issue. So, starting locally and using these techniques, such as like a GTP or design thinking process, or the skills of pinpointing the actual problem or the actual issue would actually help you solve the issue well. So I think you got to use the different techniques and try to solve the issue locally and go outward from that.
And what are potential challenges that we should bear in mind?
So when it comes to challenges, it's probably the cost and the availability of the resources in different countries. For example, in India, we are still a LMIC country, and we don't have enough resources in India to implement all these kind of new technologies because we still need to work on the basic implementation, such as in networks and trying to fix the technologies which actually help you connect with AI. So I think lot of development still needs to happen in different countries. So the major concern would be the amount of technology which is already present, which will enable the new technology to come up in
Okay,
the in countries. Yeah.
for sure, and it increases our gap as well, access resources, so I'm glad you brought that up today, thank you. Now we've got about 2.5 minutes left, and we didn't even say the funniest thing about this panel, which is that I think most of you don't have to be in school right now, right? So you're actually not in class, but you are gracing us with your presence, which we're very happy about. With about 2 minutes left, I just would love for you to all close with one thing that you would like us to know that we can do to support you better in your journeys. We'll start with you, Selin.
I think that like if you have kids, I don't know, or if you have any like kids who reach out to you, like if they send you an email or something, answer the email. It might be even a few words, but it really means a lot to the person who sent the email. I mean, when I send emails and if I get responses, I get really happy. And if someone wants to do something, like never support them whatever they want, because support is really important. Yeah.
Wonderful. So reply to emails and support people in their dreams. I love it. Fantastic. What about you, Okezue? What do you want us to know that we can do to support you better?
Yeah, I think always being open to collaboration or just hearing the perspective of a young person, not taking their age into account and kind of separating their age from their skills or the understanding or what they think they can contribute is always very helpful, kind of gaining that perspective. And who knows, it might be mutually beneficial to both sides. So always having that open-mindedness could really pay dividends.
Email, support, open mind. Excellent. This is a great list. We're taking notes. What about you, Kautilya? What do you want the adults in the room to know today to support you better?
So maybe so I love algorithms. So knowing more about AI algorithms is good.
You're doing such a lovely job. We're so proud of you. No problem, you're doing a great job. If you have another thought you want to share with us, you can absolutely do that. But I'll go over to Ratneshwaran right now. What do you want the adults to know that we can do better to support you?
Well, I think you got to be open to curiosity and accepting young people's views and perspectives. Because when I was in school, my teachers used to not really enable me to share my views or try to answer my curious questions. So I try to be open to the perspectives and the ideas of the young people, and yeah, just take them into a picture whenever you take some decisions, and also let the youth also make some decisions or come be a factor in decision making.
Lovely. So, email, respond to them, support, collaborate, have an open mind. Kautilya is going to get back to us, but I think we can all just keep supporting him regardless. And of course, taking into consideration different perspectives no matter the age. It has been such a pleasure to have time with you all today. We are going to open it up to a few questions, and I'd like to open this up to the floor. Any questions from the audience today? Lovely. I see one hand go up, and the runner is on their way over to you. It is the gentleman in the red shirt.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dieter van Vree. I'm a filmmaker. And first of all, I want to say I'm blown away with everything that you have done so far. More than that I have done in my life. And so I want to congratulate you on that. I see that you have like so much possibilities to do whatever what you're passionate about. Is there anything that is holding you back to achieve your goals? Because it seems like everything is possible, but are there still things that are holding you back? And anybody who wants to answer that question.
All right, wonderful. So thank you very much for your question. The question is anything holding you back? And Selin, let's swing that over to you.
I think that like if you want to do it, there shouldn't be anything that's holding you back. But like, you should just continue with your dream. But of course, there are some challenges. Like, I use some parts on my robots, and like when I burn the parts, even because of because they're expensive parts, I have to buy a new one, and that's sometimes really hard.
Very good. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions in the audience today? Are you at a loss for words? I can imagine. There's a question in the back.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your opinions. I think it's really great, and actually it opens up my curiosity by hearing your words. What I was wondering, how do you feel like your parents support you? And how do you get fed your curiosity through your parents? What can you advise the adults to be good parents of AI-interested children?
What a lovely question. Thank you very much. Let's see, Kautilya, maybe you can tell us a little bit, because I know Kautilya's dad was emailing with me back and forth in preparation of this panel. So Kautilya, what's the #1 thing that your dad does for you that really helps you with your coding journey?
He buys some books for me, some really nice books about algorithms and stuff like that, and AI, and basically, I think that's the #1 thing.
He buys books for you?
Yeah.
Very good, very good. So reading, making sure that there's lots of reading. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Well, we've got about 60 seconds left. So is there anything else that there we go. I knew it. There had to be another burning question in the audience.
Hi, thank you. Great channel. My name is Stefan German from Botnar. Some people are afraid of AI. What would you advise these people who are afraid about AI not to be afraid about?
Okay, great question. So, Okezue, I'd love for you to answer this question. What, people might be afraid of AI. What would you advise them? And then there's one more question from the audience, which we'll hand over to Ratneshwaran, and then we've all had an opportunity to answer a question as well. So, Okezue, over to you, please.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest things is understanding how AI is being integrated into society. I think a lot of people don't realize that AI is pretty much a part of their everyday lives, from simple recommendations to, using an automated assistant, etc. So I think understanding that AI is already a huge part of your life and will continue to grow is important. And I think to kind of alleviate that fear, it's best to get a deeper understanding of what the technology is. We're so far away from reaching the Terminator stage of AI where we have like murderous robots. I mean, that's probably never even going to happen. That's referred to as the singularity of AI, which is years and years and years away. So it's really not something to worry about. So I think that's the biggest thing to explain. The other thing to explain is that AI is going to be something that's assistive and collaborative with human beings. It's not meant to really take over human people's jobs or what they're doing, what they're thinking. It's meant to assist them and augment these processes. So I think that's the biggest thing of why not to be afraid of artificial intelligence.
Perfect. So replace fear with knowing that it's going to assist us. Wonderful. Thank you for that. And then we've got a wrap-up. Unfortunately, Ratneshwaran, we are out of time. I'm so sorry, but your answers were all wonderful. We are so proud of you. Thank you all for joining us today and for being with us. We appreciate it. Big round of applause for these wonderful panelists.
Thank you all so much. It's Babita here. Hello, I'm hosting the event here in Amsterdam. Jos, thank you. So beautifully handled. One of the hardest ones to navigate, I think. But I have to say, from everybody here, well done to you all. It's fascinating to hear your voice. And I don't know if this is true, so just nod for me or shake your head if you don't agree with what I'm about to say, because we're running out of time. But a nod, an agreement, or a shake of the head if no. But do you think, being young, sometimes people take that as, you know, inexperience or naivety, and actually people need to take you more seriously? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes, they need to take you all more seriously.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you all so much. And just before you go, Selin, boys, I don't know if you know, but we've got 2 robots here made by 15-year-old Selin. She's rocking it, girl power. What are the names here?
He's IC4U.
Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up.
IC4U and BB for all.
IC for you.
Yeah.
And
BB for all.
BB for?
All.
For all?
Yeah.
What does IC for you do?
IC4U is a robot guide dog for blind people.
Did you hear that? IC for you is a robot dog for blind people.
Yeah, and BB for all is a school-age robot for teachers, students, and staff.
So it's really important right now that we ask DJ Sleeper, what were you doing when you were 15?
I was eating corn on the cob.
So Selin is eating corn on the cob and doing this.
Amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?